If you have a Type S RSX, we're going to be showing you guys how to do a clutch on it today, step by step. So first things first, of course, jack up the car, put jack stands, and then pull off the wheels. All right, now that we got both wheels off on each side, we're going to start with taking off the top pieces right here. We're going to remove the battery, the intake, which is this clamp right here. Your stock box might be different. And then I'll show you guys underneath what we're going to do. So now that I got the battery out, we're going to remove this plastic right here. We should just pull up. And remember, when you're disconnecting your intake system, you have a plug right there. So don't just yank it out. Unplug this plug. And then we're going to pull this plastic out of the way. Now, if you want to make it easier on yourself, pull this bracket out right here. You're going to have two 12mm bolts. Underneath it, we have two bolts, one right here, and then one's going to be right here. It's kind of hard to see. Now that we got that piece out the way, there's a ground right here that goes to the battery. It's going to go down to the transmission bracket itself right here. Pull that ground off, or else you will have it in the way when you're actually dropping your transmission out. So we got my buddy right here doing the lower ball joints at the same time. You're just going to remove a little cotter pin and then that bolt right there. And then you're going to smack this A-arm downwards. That way we can drop the subframe with A-arms and not have to mess with any of this up here. So we're going to go ahead and pull this line out of the way. It's just going to be two brackets bolted in right there. That way we're disconnected from the trans. And then we got the slave cylinder, which is going to be right here, which is going to be two 12mm bolts. We're going to pull that slave cylinder out and just swing it out, just so we're not connected to the transmission anymore. Then we're going to disconnect the actual shift linkage bracket itself. So as you can see, we got a 12 right here, 12 right here, and a 12 back here. And then you can disconnect the whole shift linkage. Don't forget to disconnect these little cotter pins and slide them off. So now that we have this out to the side right here, as you can see, we got a lot more room. The bolts that you take out, I recommend just screwing them back into their holes, just so you don't get confused on where each and every bolt goes. If you can screw it back into its hole without any interference, just do that to help you save some time. So now that we got that bracket out of the way, we just stuffed it off to the corner with the shift cables on it. Now we're just going to go ahead and disconnect the harness right here, which you're going to have a clip right here to the solenoid. You're going to have to your speed sensor in the back of the motor. And then once you do that, you have one more right here. And then that's going to be all the harnesses out of the way, which means you're free to drop from the top end now, besides the motor mount. So now going to the bottom, since you have these removed, you can slide the A-arm down and swing this out. Make sure to remove the axle nut on both sides. Remove this brake line bracket just so you have some swing room. And we're going to swing the spindle outwards to get the axle out of the hub. And then we're going to pry the axle from the inside right here and pop the axles out on both sides. The other side does have a half shaft, but I'll show you guys how to remove the half shaft also. I almost forgot the ABS sensors right here. Two brackets right here on both those. My car doesn't have it, so that's why I almost forgot about it. Then up right here on the coil, we have the tie rod in, which we got just a cotter pin that you can bend and slide out. And you're gonna remove this nut and pop this out of the way. That way you have full motion swing, and the only thing that's gonna be held on up here is the actual strut tower. We're not touching any of that. Okay, so now that we got this little joint out of the way, we're gonna go ahead and grab the bottom of this and pull until our axle slides out. We're gonna push it off to the side. So we're gonna follow this axle in right here. You got a little slot. Go ahead and grab a pry bar and pry that axle out from the transmission side. Just like that, we got the axle out from this side. Now we're gonna go do and repeat the same thing on the other side, but there will be a half shaft I will show you guys how to remove first. All right, so on the passenger side, I did the same thing, just repeated the steps I showed you guys previously, and we got this axle out. Now, this is gonna be a little different. It's not gonna be in the transmission where we're gonna pry. Here, let me go down here and show you guys. Let's see. So we have a half shaft right here. As you can see, this is where the axle goes in, about right here. We're gonna pry against this, get this half shaft out, and then the half shaft has three bolts, my bad, that we have to pull out to pull the half shaft out of the transmission side, which is right here. So as you can see, we got the axle disconnected. So we have one bolt where that 14mm is. We have one bolt right here. And then up here, I don't know if you guys can see it. Probably you won't be able to see it. But up here, right above it, there's another 14. Pull all those three out. Then the half shaft will slide right out of the transmission itself with no struggle. That top bolt that I was talking about is going to be easier to get from the actual side where the axle came in. So it's right there. So just get that top bolt out and then slide that half shaft out. All right, so now we got axles out, we got suspension all out. The only things we have really holding up the transmission and motor itself is the subframe. To pull the subframe, we're gonna go right here to the top, and we have the front motor mount right there. You're gonna pull that bolt out and slide the whole bolt out itself. So you have that disconnected. And then in the back, we're gonna have, I believe, 3 bolts to the transmission mount. They're gonna be coming upwards. I'll show you guys that later. And then we have all the subframe bolts. So now that we're on the bottom, we're in the rear of the trans. We have a bolt right here, a bolt right here, and then a bolt right here with like a bushing kind of thing on it. Pull all of those out, and then we're gonna slide this rubber bushing off from the exhaust. That way we're fully disconnected from anything else. And then we're gonna go to the subframe bolts. We're gonna have one right here in the corner. We're gonna have one right here. We're gonna have one up right here, and then one on the opposite side in the same place. Okay, so we got those 3 rear bolts out. And then we went and got the 4 subframe bolts out. We left the bushing on just so it doesn't immediately drop down. So you just have to support the front. So we got the 1, 2, the 3, and then 4, which is over there in that corner right there. And then it's gonna be hanging left on that rubber bushing. Just pop it off and then slide the subframe out of the way. So many people do this different ways. I'm just gonna show you guys how I do it. So we're gonna put a jack and we're gonna support the transmission underneath. And then we're gonna pull this mount out of the way. So it's pretty self-explanatory, just 1, 2, 3 bolts, and you should be able to just drop it out. And then I'm gonna be showing you guys all the positions of where the transmission mount bolts are. So we got these 3 bolts out, well, 2 nuts and 1 bolt. And now we have the transmission fully not supported besides the jack. So we're gonna go around and find the transmission bolts. On this front bracket, there's gonna be a bolt down right here. That has to come off because that is holding the transmission to the motor. And then we're gonna go around on the top. We got one right here. We have one right there, one right there. And then underneath, I'm gonna show you some more. So now coming under to the front side, we do have to pull this starter bolt up right here. And these are all gonna be 17s, by the way, that I'm showing you. This front mount, to make it easier, just pull all of them off. 1, 2, and then you got 1 right here, 3. So now if you come down to the bottom, we got 2 bolts right here, 1, 2. These are gonna be 14 millimeters. They're different from the 17s. Then we're gonna keep going around. We're gonna have a 17 right here and a 17 right here. And that's gonna be all the bolts to the transmission. We're gonna leave this mount on when pulling off the transmission. I missed 1 bolt. It's gonna be right there, facing this way. Okay, now that we got it all off, we just went and got a pry bar and we pried against it, and now you can see we have an open gap. We're just gonna go pry all the way around, open the gap all the way up, and then with the jack, pull and slide the transmission out and drop it down. And then I'm gonna show you the inside of the transmission. And you can see the gap on the bottom now. I did forget to tell you guys, pull off this little 10 millimeter, it's just a little flywheel cover. Pull that off because that will hold it in place. Okay, and here's gonna be the inside of the transmission. Well, this is the motor side where the clutch and flywheel is. So we're gonna go ahead and unbolt all of these 10 millimeter 12 points to get the pressure plate off and to get the clutch out of the way. This is gonna be the transmission side. You can see there's a lot of clutch material right here, and it's all caked up around here. So we know that clutch has been burnt really bad. Okay, yeah, this thing got extremely hot. It wasn't a stock clutch, we found that out. But I think the culprit was this. This just fell out as soon as we pulled the clutch off, which this is your pilot bearing, which keeps everything aligned. So yeah, this got super hot. You can see it cracked. So we're gonna go ahead and put a new clutch kit in. I recommend replacing your flywheel or getting it resurfaced before you do so, but a customer is just gonna roll with what he has. So we got the new throttle bearing here. We did grease the connecting joints, and this goes on the shift fork right here. All you do is slide it on and off. It's pretty self-explanatory for that. Customer did approve a new flywheel, so he's bringing us a flywheel, and then we're just gonna install the clutch back in and reverse the whole process. So this is what we got right here, just something simple to get the car up and running. Make sure to get torque specs for the pressure plate and the flywheel. That way you don't have anything internally falling apart. And just go ahead and reverse the whole process of everything, and you should be fine.